On, everybody? This is Nick with the Long Haul Fitness YouTube channel. Today, I've got my old coach, Jerry Ward, on here. Hey, what's up, Jerry? I
Hey,
appreciate you
what's going
coming
on,
on.
man? All right, buddy.
Good, man. Bro, can you believe it's been almost 4 years since we did that show?
It's time is going by so fast. Like I remember, like my mom when I was younger being like, "Oh, the older you get, the faster time goes." And I'm like, "Shit, it's going by so fast now." Like we're halfway through 2020 already. Like we're 6 months in.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
I was literally just talking to my friend yesterday about it, and it's like, how the fuck did we go on quarantine and time sped up?
it's
Like,
weird, and it's weird because usually when you're not busy, like time slows down. But like as many people when they're on quarantine, like if they were, paying attention to what was going on, they could do something positive with it. And I
right.
actually just started doing more things in general that I didn't have time to do. Like I hung up like paintings around the house and shit. Like I
Yeah.
did some stuff on the deck. Like I did like home projects that I haven't been able to do for like the last 10 years. Like we cleaned out the entire office and set up like a new thing for the elliptical and stuff behind me. Like we did, went through all of our clothes and donated a bunch of stuff, like cleaned the closets out.
Oh,
So it was
yeah.
like I had time to be a person, for the first
Yeah.
time in like, 10 years.
Bro, I'm not even gonna lie. I was a lazy piece of shit during, for like 2 months. Before we started recording with all the technical issues we had, we were kind of talking about it a little bit, and I told you the news that I've got my son on the way,
And awesome.
and I found
Congratulations.
out. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It was really really unexpected. So I found out about a month before quarantine started, so it kind of put me in not a depression. I don't want to call it that, but it was a funk. So I stopped working out. I didn't have access to anything because I'm not a fucking push up air squat guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you're the same way, or at least when I'm sure things have changed over the years, but
Absolutely.
um,
I found that like this, especially like what happened now, like it's never been like this. Maybe a week out of the gym, maybe like because you schedule like a week after a show or something. But like to be
right.
knocked out of the gym for like 3 months, it's unheard of for all of us.
Yeah. So I was really fortunate that there's a gym up here. It's Metroflex Plano. They actually somehow managed to get opened early. They got permission from the city of Plano, so they've been open since the first of last month. So
Nice.
I've been back in the gym for about a month now, and you know Chris Tuttle, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm working with him currently, and we've part of the YouTube thing that I'm doing is going through another cut. It so you and I worked together 4 years ago, but my last cut was 3 years ago, and I just wanted something new to kind of spark my fire again.
Right.
So we started to cut, and then I'm not going to spend the money to do a show because my son needs that money a lot more than the NPC does. But with the YouTube channel, I can now kind of have an outlet for it and a reason behind a cut because I've tried to do them in the past where like I was like, oh, I don't need a show, I don't need this and that, and it's so hard to want to stick to that cut when there's not a real purpose behind it, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, motivation comes from a lot of different places, and competition has, it's one of those things where when you pay the money up front and you tell everybody about it, you're kind of stuck going through with it. You
Right,
have to follow through. But like,
right,
I've never needed a show. I just have not needed. I mean, I've used the shows, meaning like when it came to like when my father passed away, I had
hmm,
no plans on ever competing again. But I jumped into a contest prep because the contest prep alone helps me control my thoughts and slow things down a little bit because you're so focused on something else that other things kind of trickle into your mind as opposed to like what's going on. But
right,
like that, the the shows are great for motivation, but eventually you stop doing shows. So
right.
it's like you can't keep your shit together after the shows are over. You're just gonna get out of shape. You know what I mean? And why would you want to, put all this work and effort into building this physique and living this lifestyle, and then
Right.
just let it all go to hell later on? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So this is kind of a new way for me to find that extra motivation without spending thousands of dollars on contest prep, you know.
Yeah.
But man, I was still thinking about that 4 year time frame. So much has changed in there. You have hair now. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah. Actually, I have hair now. Yeah, it's all smashed from my hat, but
it looks
yeah,
good,
it was
man.
it was I was down in Mexico with my wife, and I hadn't shaved my head for a couple of days while we were down there on vacation, and I was like, I think there's more up there. I was like, I could feel it growing in, and I was like, wow, I think there's more hair up there than I thought. And it was growing out kind of gray. I dye it 'cause it's kind of gray. And
Yeah,
she
yeah,
goes, nah. She goes, nah, I don't think so. I said, what? I was like, okay, challenge accepted. So I'm not cutting my hair. She thought I was kidding. she didn't believe that I would stop cutting my hair, because as long as I've known her for 14 years, I've always at least had a very short haircut, like a very cropped, if not, completely shaved bald. And yeah, after a few weeks, it was starting to look a little weird. And I was like, I don't know if I can go through with this, because it goes through these phases where you can't look normal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Freemason, so at our lodges, when we have our get-togethers, you have to wear a suit. You can't wear a hat. So like, I was like, man, I look like a goofball. Like, I'm like, I'm going to look like a goofball for a little while. So I kind of went through that period where I looked stupid and got made fun of a little bit, and went through that whole deal. But
everybody's like, is Jerry on drugs again?
Like people are like, did you get hair transplants? And I'm like, no. I'm like, they would look, and then I get hair transplants, I'd assume.
Yeah.
But like, it was one of those things where I did start taking minoxidil, which is the Rogaine stuff that you put in your hair. I started using that because my hair is thin on the top and in the back. And I started taking finasteride, which is something that I didn't even know a lot of the pros take. Had no idea that they were taking it to keep their hairline. So I was like, I was kind of late to the party. It's been 30 years, that I finally started lifting, that I started doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, you didn't have to go to a doctor. You could do it online, because it's not like an opiate or something. You could just do it online with a doctor visit there.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So I started taking the pills and stuff, and I did notice my hair was growing back thicker, and like I had new hair growing, and I was like, you gotta be shitting me. I'm like, this is. So then I was like, I'm not cutting it all. I'm just gonna literally let it grow all down. I'm like, I've never had a man bun or cornrows. I'm like, we'll try some new stuff. And then my wife Erin, she's laughing. She's like, you're not gonna do man bun. I said, okay, here we go. Challenge accepted. Here we go. So since, it's been like 15 months since I stopped cutting it. I cut it once where it was growing out weird, and I shaved the sides and the back and just left the top. And that was the only time I've touched it for like 15 months now.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm very blessed with, is I have very thick hair that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So fingers crossed anyways. I could just have screwed myself there. But.
Right. You put it out there. Here's you. It goes, I got other plans, pal.
Yeah, right. But so when the last time we worked together, you most of what you were doing was just training clients. Obviously, YouTube is a big thing for you. You've got a lot of followers with YouTube and Instagram and that sort of thing. But since then, you've transitioned into some other things with your supplements and the clothing line and all that kind of stuff. Like, how has that been going since then?
Well, until the pandemic, it was going really well. It seems like everything, took a hit, but it was really weird, because like for a good 4 to 5 weeks, we were still doing well. Like, I actually felt kind of guilty about it. Like I made a decision as soon as the pandemic hit that I wasn't going to advertise on my social media like I typically did. Sure. Like, I saw these, companies out there that were like trying to do sales, like COVID-19 sale and stuff. I was like, I can't capitalize on something that's happening that I felt like it just wasn't the right thing to do.
Right.
And, there's other companies, I saw them, trying to promote their products. I'm like, dude, nobody's going to buy a $600 watch right now. They don't even know if they're going to be able to have their house at the end of 2 months. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of backed up and I said, you know what? You guys know where I'm at. You know where to find me. If you're still training and you need the products, we're here for you. But other than that, like, we're not going to advertise. So
yeah,
doing the right thing was the hardest thing to do, because I knew I would take a hit. It was bad business, but I'm like, right now it's not about business. Like, I don't want people's business. I want their support. And to me, that's different. Like, I don't want people to go, I want to buy his product because I need a product. I want people to go, I need that product, but that's Jerry, and I want to help him out too at the same time, so everybody wins. Like, that's my thing. And I felt like my integrity would be just out the window. Like, the only thing that I feel above a lot of people out there is my integrity and my word. The things that I say and do, if I follow through and I show it to everybody time after time after time, like, you'll go back and you can see everything that I say I can back up through things that I've done. Right. And even the relationships that I've had through different sponsors and friends, I don't burn those bridges, because I don't see any need. I don't take a lot of things personally. So I take things as they come. Like, business decisions are business decisions. So there's no point of, burning those bridges. So like, when it came time to do my company, it was the natural next step in my evolution.
Yep.
But then the pandemic hits, right when we were getting ready to launch overseas, the pandemic hit. So I was like, okay, so now we come out with a supplement. We had one supplement. It was doing well. We're up to 7 supplements now in the brand. And it was getting so out of control, I shut it down. I was like, we're not going to be shipping overseas. We're not going to be doing this. We're not going to do like, I want to make sure that I can control this thing before it gets like so out of control that I don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? So I shut it down like that for, about a year. And then we were getting ready to launch, and then the pandemic hit. So then it was like time to back up again and figure out, okay, you know what? We're going to launch. We'll wait till the pandemic's over.
Yeah.
I already had these masks that I call them the Trend Killer masks for the Trend Killer Society, which is one of the gimmicks with my business. And I was selling these masks because it was part of the Trend Killer thing. Well, I was like, I didn't realize I was ahead of my time. Like, now masks are mandatory. So I was like, well, now I'm just going to give them away. So all the orders come with a free mask, and the masks themselves, like, you can wear them as a mask, which you have to go back to the gym. You can wear it as like a headband around your neck. You can do other things with it that I felt like was a little bit cooler than some of those little, masks
Yeah.
that we're on, and because it's a little bit thinner than the other ones, you can breathe through it better in the gym. So
Yeah.
like that was something that wasn't even intentional. I was doing masks before the COVID. Now it's like everybody's wearing my masks, but it's because they need a mask, you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, we'll just give those out. So we tried to take something negative and turn it into a little bit of positive with the company and say, you know what? Maybe you have your masks you wear out with your friends or your family when you go out places, but when you go to the gym, you want to be hardcore. Here's a skull mask you pull up. You know what I mean? It's a little more motivating, a little more hardcore, a little bit of, like a little bit of kind of getting you in that mindset of going after the gym and training hard and forgetting, what's outside there for a little bit. So it was more of a something that I saw would kind of bond people together rather than, what we're seeing right now, especially with the racism things that are happening, just tearing everybody apart. Right. So we're trying to do whatever we can to make people feel like, like, look, collectively, bodybuilders are a group unlike others. You know what I mean? They live a certain lifestyle. We have certain, things that we think of differently, like food. We think of food differently than everyone else. So why not at least right now in, bodybuilding, there is no color. Race doesn't matter in bodybuilding. It does not matter where you're from. You got the body, you win. Right. So I kind of looked at it as like bodybuilding itself, I feel like has brought people together from all different races and nationalities and stuff. We should keep going with that because we found a solution. We may have not found a solution for the entire world, but bodybuilding in general has found a solution for that race problem. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of like how I look at it is, bodybuilding has given us so much, but I don't think that we realize that it's actually given us the ability to get together and get along with other people with major differences and not even have, any kind of arguments or anything like that,
Yeah, I mean, I think not even just bodybuilding. I think it's fitness in general because there's not really a barrier to entry with fitness. Anyone can do it, regardless of age, gender, race, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I think you're completely right on that. To kind of backtrack a little bit to what you were saying at the beginning of this, you were talking about your integrity and what you've built your brand on. And I just have to say, like, that's 100% why I started following you from the beginning. Because when I first started following you, you were one of the only people besides Rich Piana who was putting out videos educating people about drug use. And I know that's kind of where it started and things like that. And you've definitely transitioned since then. But just the pure honesty that you were giving people on those kinds of things was very refreshing. Because there's not very many people in the fitness industry right now who are willing to talk about that side of things and be completely honest with it, especially somebody like you who has such a big following and at the time was with companies who were sponsoring you. Obviously now you have your own company, thing like that, but most of these bodybuilders and stuff aren't willing to talk about those things and aren't willing to be honest. So I think that's a lot of times where people start to get frustrated with these big names is because they're almost hiding something, like.
Oh, yes, I completely agree. It's not to interject, but I completely agree. But before my ADD gets the best of me and I forget what I was going to say, people, and I understand why. And one of the first people that I came to defense was Mark Lobliner, because Mark didn't say that he took gear, and people were like, "Why aren't you saying the truth?" And they went after him, and I'm like, "Look, he's got a wife, kids, businesses. Like, gear is illegal. Admitting that you do it is putting yourself in a position where if somebody wants to make an example of you, they can because you're the big fish and you're the name that they can do that, right? But at the same time, my drug use was in my past. It wasn't happening at current time. Right. Rich Piana was on gear then. You know what I mean? Like he was talking about what he was doing. I looked at it as, hey, they can come after you for whatever they want. The statute of limitation is up. There's no reason for me not to talk about this stuff. Yeah. Especially like if it's, like you look at me and I was 260, 270 pounds. And now I'm 198. It's like you can see the difference between on drugs and off drugs. And I can show, this is what happened when I was on, this is what happened when I was off, and I had to transition. Like I was like, maybe I can help people get off the drugs that want to get off them. Maybe I can help them be a little bit safer with some of the knowledge that I have. It just made sense. And really, like the companies themselves, I started talking about it before the companies came to me. And I think that was a big thing. The companies themselves went, well, if he's being honest and he's being legit, let's see what else he has to say about other things. And then they were like, this is what we want. If he thinks that our brand is legit, he's going to put his heart and soul in it, and he's going to say the things that and people are going to feel it. So they started approaching me and going, we just want you to try our stuff. Try our stuff. Tell us what you think. And then once that happened, it was like, okay, well, moving forward, you can't creatively tell me what to do with my channels and my social media. And they're like, no, we want you to do it. Like, even Primeval, who is it's a huge company now. When it started, it was a very small company. Mm-hmm. They were like, you do what? They never asked me to do something like, that was not straight from my heart or something I said. They never gave me things to say. They never gave me scripts. They were like, hey, you know what? We have this product coming out. Take it for a little while. Tell us what you think about it, and then let's do a review. It was never like, okay, we want you to hit these bulletin points and say this. It was, you tell us what you feel, what you think, da da da. Then I'd study up on it. I'd use it for a little bit, and then I would be able to even swear. I'd be able to do the things that made me me, and still get my point across. And the companies, again, I was just lucky enough to have companies that were not the type of company that was like old school, as in like you have to be a certain mold to represent our brand. It was like the more original you can be, the more you can be. We're happy with that.
Right.
You know, I just got lucky in that predicament like that, you know?
Yeah. Hey, am I still moving on your screen? You froze. I can still hear everything you're saying. Oh, there we go. You froze for a second, but yeah. And I think that was probably like 5 or 6 years ago when I first started following you, and I feel like the industry has since changed because of people like you and because of companies like Primeval who want their athletes to be open. I feel like there definitely are a lot more people. I wasn't necessarily talking about drugs in general. I was just saying that at the time you were one of the only people really being honest about that kind of thing and telling people the real stuff behind it, not just the garbage that you can find on Google. Like not even drugs, for example, like not just to focus on drugs, but like you were 100% honest about what it took to, like, training wise, diet wise, all that stuff. And you could tell every time I listened to your videos, you could tell that everything you were saying was from the heart because you care about the people who are listening to you and you want to put out the best information possible. And I think the other thing that really drew me to you was the fact that you aren't like, you don't have a doctorate, you don't have huge degrees, you don't have these what people would normally consider the big credentials, but you have the experience and the background, and you have put boots on the ground and worked hard to get to where you are and have the real world experience versus these people who are spitting out these big words all the time. You know, like I'm not a scientific person. I'm not going to be throwing around like all the scientific terms that will come out of one of my school books or anything like that. It just doesn't click in my head that way. So I connected with you over that, and it was just very, not to call it layman's terms, but like it was very simplified so that anybody could understand it regardless of where they were, whether they were advanced or beginner. And I think that's where a lot of people really have connected with you.
It's so I kind of like to relate things to other things.
Yeah.
Because that's how I understand them. You know what I mean? So I'm like you. If you tell me the big words, I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, it doesn't, you know, and then you gotta spell the word. I'm like, I can't even say the word, let alone spell it. But if you speak English in a perspective, like, you know, like, you know, it could be whatever it is. Like, oh, when you're curling, really, really fight it on the way down. Okay, like fight it. Like, you know, like when you're going to put down that fucking pizza and you don't want to drop it, and that feeling in your arms, yeah, that's a feeling you want. Okay, if you can relate it to that, somebody can get that feeling. Right. They know how to train the arms now, as opposed to, you know, lifting a pizza. Even though it's the same muscle, the same movement, it's, you can relate it to them, they'll understand it, you know. And that was my thing. I'd always have to go out after somebody said something and like try to, and we didn't have the internet back then, so I'd have to go ask people and then read books and then try to figure out, like, you know, how this kind of relates. And then the best things that I could understand, people already related in the book. They'd say, it's like this. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So then what happens, I would go out and I'd find all these different things, you know, like basketball is not cardio, right? How do you relate to that? I mean, I knew that when I said that, people are going to lose their minds. Oh, right? Yeah. I go through it, I put it, and people go, well, you don't even understand how the body works. I'm like, actually, I do. It's not the exact mechanisms, the big word-wise. But when you break it down, you can take all those big words and put them aside. What I'm telling you, all you have to do is understand that, and you understand how that works. Right. You don't need to know the big words, you know? Like, there's a lot of people out there, like, they lose people because they're so into the big words and so into, you know, the science behind it, and they're almost smug about it. And I'm like, here's the deal. You're here. I'm here. You went through all the schooling. I didn't. I'm at the same point you are. Right. I have the same audience and the same people listening. Like, it's not, you know, it's not an ego thing. It's trying to help, you know? And I think a lot of people out there, they are dazzled with the big words and the PhD and the you know, the different terms used. They get dazzled by, oh, he really knows what he's talking about, right? Right. And then somebody else like me comes along and I have the same exact thing to say, but it's in a different context. They go, well, he's an idiot. Well, I may be an idiot to you, but I'm getting through to people that normally couldn't be gotten through from the other people that were saying it. So I think there was just at that point in time, there's just a need for somebody that can just be a regular person and talk like a regular person that people understood. Like The Rock is a perfect example. Before he came along, we had all these stars and stuff, but so many people can relate to him because, you know, he came from poverty. You know, he was a wrestler. His father was a wrestler. Like, well, kids want to be wrestlers. He's half black. He's half Samoan. He's all these things people can relate to, and he's just a normal person. He doesn't claim to be anything other than Dwayne Johnson, which makes him so appealing to everybody, even though he's so much further ahead in just about everything everybody does, but he's still just like a normal guy, you know? So a story I like to tell about him is a friend of mine worked at a hotel where he was staying at, and the girl that cleaned his room, the maid or whatever it was, she had taken care of the room for like a week or whatever, and he tried to give her money. And she was like, no, I don't want your money. Like, no, it's totally cool. It's just my job. Like, she was really against it. She was just happy to be able to talk to him and stuff, right? So he took pictures with her or whatever, you know, and then he goes down to the front desk. Now, The Rock, when he puts a hat on, he's not like everybody else. He puts a hat on, it's like Clark Kent with the glasses. Nobody recognizes him. Like, he walks, and people, he's in the gym working out, and nobody has a clue because he's got a hood up. You know what I mean? Like, it's just bizarre. So he goes down there and he asks, you know, what this lady, like, what was she into? Like, she have a certain team she likes, sports, whatever. And the lady at the desk was like, she really likes these cookies. She's like, so-and-so makes them. It's a very specific homemade cookie thing or whatever. He goes, okay, where can I find these? And he wrote down everything. About a week later, the lady comes into work, and there was a giant thing of like hundreds of dollars worth of these cookies waiting for her with a card that said, thank you for everything, you know, Dwayne.
Yeah.
And stuff that he did not have to do. He's a normal person. He wanted to take care of someone who helped him. So he put his hat on like a normal person. He walked down to the desk like a normal person. He stood there at the desk around all these people that would freak out if they knew it was him, being a normal person, doing a normal person thing that was something nice for somebody. Right. And I go, that's why he's appealing. It's not because he's good looking. It's not because of the physique. It's not because of the movies and wrestling. It's because he's a normal person doing a job that everyone would love to do and be, you know, rich and famous and movie stars. And he's still just that normal guy.
Yeah.
So if you're normal, I feel like you get through to people rather than, you know, people not being able to relate to you because you're up on a pedestal. They oh, well, that's him, but it's not me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at times when, like, someone like I have a kinesiology degree and I still don't understand the big words. And a lot of times when someone's trying to get their point across and they are using those big words, it almost seems like they're talking down to you. So when with someone like you, it's more of like on the same level, just meeting that person where they are. You know, it's like some of these people can't even get off of that. Like, they can't not use the big words. They can't explain it without it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, they only understand it with that, which makes you go, okay, if you only understand the big words, it means you don't understand actually what you're talking about. You memorize what you're talking about.
You know,
I don't memorize. Right. You memorize the term so you can go through it. But if I actually explain it, how it works, you go back and say the same thing again.
Yeah.
As opposed to if it was me, I'd be like, okay, well, this has to enter the cell's nucleus like this. Well, how does it work? Well, it has to enter. Okay, it pushes against it. I don't know. You know, like you can relate to it and say, like, I don't know, it pushes, fights its way through. I don't know, it's strong. You know what I mean? Like, and then they laugh at it, but they remember how you're saying it, and it makes it relatable to be like, yeah, that strong thing can enter the cell. Now it knows that it enters the cell, even though the people didn't understand before. They now know that it enters the cell because it's strong. You don't have to know how. You just have to know that it enters the cell. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just kind of how I understand things. And you know, I'll read things and I'll have people I'll watch these different tutorials of people talking about stuff, and they'll lose me halfway through. Yeah. I'm still trying to find out what they were talking about. You know, like, I'm still trying to relate it in my head what they were talking about the first 5 minutes. They're 30 minutes into it. I'm like, we got to go back to that first 5 because I'm still at the 5, but I want to make sure I know that 5 because I want that 5 to be relatable when I relate it to somebody else. Right. I want them to be able to explain it to them to where they actually understand what's happening. You know what I mean? Like, cardio is a perfect example. You can go through the whole Krebs cycle and how everything's work, but as long as you're using a constant motion of never stopping, your body is now in an aerobic state, right? It's not, you can't sit there and curl 50 pounds for 25 minutes straight. You literally tear the muscles and fatigue, but you can move, right? So if I'm explaining the difference between aerobic and anaerobic using that, walking, if you keep going, that's aerobic. If you stop and then you walk again, you stop, that's anaerobic. Now they would go through the Krebs cycle and how this coenzyme works, and I'm like, for what? Well, what's the point? I don't need to know that. I'm never going to have a test on it. Right. You know what I mean? So I just need to know that if I keep moving my feet for 30 minutes, that is an aerobic state. If I stop every minute, despite my heart rate going up, that is no longer an anaerobic state. You haven't hit that threshold. So finding the ways to relate the stuff, information for me is really, and then explaining it and presenting it. Like, you know, I always say that I'm just an average guy saying average things like the average person out there. I stopped trying to be special a long time ago because I realized I was just average, but I also realized that the world needs average people too, because you can't relate with the people that are put on a pedestal. They always fall off the pedestal. But if you're just an average person, you can at least move through that life of yours, bringing people along with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you're on that pedestal above them. You can bring them with you, and not you can't pull them up because you're not above them, but you can bring them with you on your way up. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. And at this point, I think most of the people who are going to be watching this video already understand, like, for the most part, they know your background, they know your fitness history and that kind of thing. One thing that I've really noticed a lot from your Instagram page recently is talking a lot more about the mental aspect of a lot of things, and how focusing on like basically the law of attraction stuff, how focusing on certain things brings it into your life. How long ago would you say you really started to understand that and start to apply that to your life?
You see glimpses of it, I think, throughout your life here and there. Like the mind is stronger than the body and stuff like that. But it wasn't until
when was it like a full idea, not just like a glimpse of it, not something that you just like, oh, I could see it then. What was it like, okay, this is the thing that I can control now?
Oh, she's gonna love this. She's gonna love the fact that you asked this. But it was my wife. Actually, not meeting my wife, because I met her like 20 years ago when we first started training together. But she's really spiritual, and she really thinks deep, and she makes me think deeper. And then when we started dating, we started making each other think deeper with these thoughts, because she would say something that would spark some kind of question in my head, and then I'd go back to my house and I'd kind of think about it for a week, and we'd see each other on the weekends and be like, hey, remember last week? And it started to be this thing. And then I realized that there was a lot of things around me. Of course, I became a Freemason also. It's a year ago I became a Freemason. And it really changes to where you realize certain things, like asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, knocking you shall enter. You hear these things that are almost nursery rhymes that we've learned as a kid or through the Bible or whatever, stuff like that. And I'm not necessarily religious, but I started going, what if there's something deeper? What if there's something more? What if there is a law of attraction? And then I realized most of my life I was so negative that like I just attracted more shit in my life, right? And when I really put myself in that perspective, when I started learning about it, then I realized like this might be why I've been where I'm at and why I'm at. And I need to cut from this thing and move my life in a different direction, but move the people in a different direction, like get rid of the people that are dragging me down. Like it all made sense, right? And I think right about when you started watching me is when I started figuring out that I needed to cut off from certain people and places and things and kind of go in my own direction. And then it really was like when you started following me, it was just me learning about myself. Like if you go back and watch those videos, you can watch me transition throughout time and see even the way I speak now, I carry myself, all of that is different than it was, 5-6 years ago, or even 10 years. This stuff started 10 years ago now at this point. And, but it really was when I met her or started dating her in 2005 or 2015, I'm sorry, that I really started hammering home. And then it became like, if I could not be negative and be more positive, I felt like that opened me up creatively to where I would figure out a lot of solutions to the problems that I had.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter whether it was attracting it to me or I was figuring out the solutions. As long as I was in a positive frame of mind, I could be creative. And when you get all bound up and negative, it stifles your creativity. You can't figure out solutions to the problems that you have in general.
Right.
So once that was like in my face, I was like, okay, that's a solution to a problem that I've had.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I need to stay calm. And usually when I stay calm, I'll work through things and all of a sudden you're getting an answer to your solutions. You know what I mean? Or you come up with a new idea for a supplement or whatever it is, but you have to stay in that positive frame of mind or everything goes to shit. And then I watch my Facebook of people back home, like where I grew up, and it's none. I can't take anymore. I've had enough of this. Like, when they put that stuff and they don't even say what it is, they're just out there like venting. And then a bunch of people jump in and then they start, and then you watch it. You go from, the people that were positive go right to negative because they're telling about their negative experiences and they're watching it turn from just an original post into something that's feeding into negativity. That's where I was. So I'm like, I can't allow that to happen. And, the internet's not a good place to learn how to be positive. You got all the trolls and stuff. Like they come at you and they say things. And I took part in the trolling back with them for a while. Like I remember this one time, this is so funny. So my ex-girlfriend, her father had no idea what trolling was. He had no idea. But somebody had said something about his daughter, my girlfriend at the time. So he got upset and he said something. And then they went after him. And he didn't understand what they were saying things to him. He's like, I don't know. I don't even understand, But he saw me interacting and they said something about my dog. And my dog, Nico, had passed away at the time. Super traumatic for me. I had to put him down. I had never done that before in my life.
Yeah.
And they were saying something about your dead dog. And I was like I was wrapped in this troll mindset. I was like, well, he's not dead. I ate him. Like that's where he went. And her father was like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, "You don't understand. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to go at them hard, like they're coming at you, like to fight them off." And he was just like, "Oh my god!" He like couldn't believe that I said I ate the dog when I didn't. But he's like, "Why are these people so like you're saying things that are so outrageous?" And I was like, "Well, you have to fight fire with fire, right?" And when I first started, like the trolls liked that, but they liked the fact like they didn't come after me to be mean to me. They knew that I was gonna interact with them. They knew I was gonna come back with something so crazy.
Sure.
They wanted to see what I was gonna say. And then I realized, like, dude, you're going nuts because you're always on guard trying to come up with shit to combat what they're saying. Like you're becoming this thing, like this nonstop thing of thinking about crazy shit to combat them. Like you're not even you anymore.
Yep.
You know, who are you now? And then I had to step back and go, all right, the troll thing was fun for a little while, but like I need to keep that positive frame of mind because it's affecting me, my family, my girlfriend's family. Like, we need to pull this shit together. And then I went with the more positive, but people go, well, he's so positive, I swear a lot. So they go, well, how can you be positive and swear? And I'm like, swearing is just a way, it's a way of expressing yourself. It's a way of, it's like capitalizing those letters. That motherfucker makes you capitalize that guy was a jerk, So it's like, yeah, I get people go like, he can't be religious, he can't be spiritual, he swears. And I'm like, I didn't see anywhere in the Bible anywhere that it said not to use the F word. I still haven't found that part in the Bible. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even know what that word was. So how could they outlaw it? You know what I mean? Like what makes you think it's because of people's different preconceived notions of what you should and shouldn't be like, which is I try not to be a preconceived prima donna also. I try to just be where I want to be that day. If I feel like swearing, I will. If I feel like not, I won't. You know what I mean? There are days I don't swear at all. And that's hard for people to believe, but it's just where I'm at in the moment.
Yeah, sure. I understand. See, it's funny that you say that your wife was kind of the catalyst to that because I had a similar thing, but the opposite. So when you and I worked together, I was with a girl. She was living with me. And then we broke up. We got back together, and then we're together for almost 2 years. And in that 2 years, towards the end, it started to really become a bad, negative relationship where like I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to do all this stuff. And it was to the point where it was the looking back on it now, the writing was on the wall, right? Like when a relationship is going bad, it's coming, but you just keep putting it off, right? So all of this negative stuff kept coming into my life until finally it culminated in a car accident to where I tore my labrum on this side, and the very next day, her and I broke up. So it was all this stuff that all just came together. And then, Mom, I apologize for what I'm about to tell you. Sorry. After that, I tried mushrooms, and I've tried LSD since then. And those two things there really like in the moment, it wasn't really a thing of like this epiphanous moment of like, holy shit, I've been negative. But there was just little things that my brain just kind of opened up to it to where it's like, why am I holding on to this? Why am I carrying this around? And my best friend, Mark, we did them together. And he honestly is him and his wife are the catalyst behind me being who I am now. At the time when you were my coach, I was working at a supplement company and working for Mark. He was my boss, but him and his wife, we were all working together and we all became best friends. And he started to get into it and he kind of drugged me into it. And then we just got really, really deep into this thing.
Get into it. What do you mean getting into what?
The law of attraction stuff. So just like putting out into the universe the things that you want and the things that you're after, and putting a positive vibe out behind it, and just allowing things to come to you and not worrying about the little details along the way. I think a lot of times we get so focused on like, oh, what should I do here? What should I do here? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Where it's like, if you focus on those small details, you're going to get caught up in the weeds. But if you just take those steps towards what you say you want to do and actually put effort behind it with a positive attitude, things will start to come to you in unexpected ways.
Which trauma is paralysis by analysis, where people just keep analyzing shit so much to the point where they can't act because they're scared to make a wrong move because they think it's going to ultimately be destroyed because they make a wrong move. Well, failing is part of the process. So you're supposed to make the wrong move to learn from it. It's funny you say the mushrooms. So mushrooms were something that you know, even well in my past, I had a heroin addiction when I was younger.
Sure.
And drugs scare the shit out of me. Just because I've gone through withdrawals, I've battled this, and I've never had a relapse. I've never had any issues back. After once I decided I was going to stop, that was it.
Yep.
And I've had a problem with insomnia pretty much since I was a teenager. They put me on stuff like trazodone when I was younger. They did say where they tried to keep me awake for days at a time, something called modafinil. So clock would reset. So I would be awake all night, and then I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I'd fall asleep at like 2 in the afternoon for like a half an hour, and then I'd be up all night. Like a half an hour was enough to fuel me. So they gave me pills that would keep me up that whole time. And when I stopped taking them, your body crashes. It's almost like giving you speed to make sure you keep going. It crashes, and those didn't work. So I wound up taking Benadryl for like, oh man, I don't know, like 10 years. I was taking Benadryl like every night to sleep. It was bad. And I take GABA sometimes if the Benadryl was, where it wasn't working.
Right.
So finally I was in Vegas in 2016 with Dorian Yates. And Dorian's a big, promoter of cannabis. And he's like, man, you should just smoke weed. And I was like, dude, I don't want to smoke weed. He's like, no, I'm telling you. He's like, wait a minute, we're in Vegas. He's like, just go to the dispensary, get edible. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't even know what it was. So I was scared because the edibles may trigger something in me to have that reaction where I'm off and running with opiates again.
Right.
And I talked to a few people about it, and they were like, look, it's a different receptor. Like, it might work well for you. It's a natural thing. Like, tread lightly. And I made a decision to try the edibles, and they worked phenomenally. I've been able to do edibles from 2016 all the way up to 2020. Wow. Never had an issue. Like, I only do them when I go to bed. Like, I can't do them during the day. Like, I don't feel good on them. Like, I don't like the high, but I sleep. Sure. Now, that was going on for a while, and I was getting these, I call them spiritual downloads. I don't know what you would want to call them, but I have these dreams, these vivid dreams, these lucid dreams that actually would work through problems in my dreams, which was really weird, right? And I have a couple friends. One's a shaman, is actually a shaman. Another one's very spiritual. And they were like, look, these things that you're talking about, that you're seeing, and these fractals and stuff you're seeing, and all these different things, like, that's good. Like, that's not usually what you see on THC. Mm-hmm. So I had this one friend who's a shaman, and he was like, if you ever want to do something like mushrooms, he's like, let me know. And I was like, yes, let's do it. I don't know much about it, but there was a show on TV called Kentucky Ayahuasca, which I was very, very. Did you ever seen that? You know what I'm talking about?
No, but it just sounds so sketchy.
It's like this backwoods, like in the middle of Kentucky, like this dude that looks like he's got like one tooth in his head. He's a shaman, and they give these people ayahuasca, and it's like they stopped the show because it was so powerful. Like, you can get 3 years worth of, psychiatry done in like 20 minutes on ayahuasca, right? So now the problem is I didn't know about ayahuasca, and I was like, well, maybe the mushrooms are like a beginner's kit, like a starter's kit.
Right.
So we came together, we did the trip together, and it absolutely changed my perspective on death. Like, hands down. I was no longer scared to die after the mushroom trip, because you can either have the mushroom trip where you're high and trying to use it, like giggling with your friends, or you can use it and ask the universe for information, like cosmic information. So there's two different ways, and Native Americans used to use peyote. Like, these mushrooms have been around thousands and thousands of years, and they contain information. That information is cosmic information. So I said, okay. So we sat down, we set the intentions, I did it. And when we went through the trip, I found this place called hyperspace, it's called. Now, hyperspace would be similar to what people call heaven. Religious people call it heaven. Spiritual people call it hyperspace. And this is where you go when you die. And I actually wound up in this space with the shaman, and he was on the mushrooms too. And he was in the space with me. He could tell me what I was seeing because he was seeing the exact same thing. It was bizarre. It was like being in a movie, because we were both in the same headspace, but two different people. Wow. When we finally came through with that, I was like, I understood how the grass grows even, which is bizarre. But the way that the grass grows, it grows in all different directions. And I'm out there looking at grass, right, on the mushrooms. I'm like, what the hell? And he's like, look, he goes, see how it's chaos? It's going everywhere? I'm like, yeah. He goes, imagine if it all went in one direction. He goes, only one side of it would get the sun. He's like, it goes in every direction because it's needed in order to grow like that. That's how it works. He's like, there's order and chaos. And I was like, you got to shit me. So now I'm like, what else out there is there order in this chaos? What else? I'm looking at trees. I'm looking at everything in a different way. Birds, everything, how everything interacts with each other. I mean, everything changed from that moment as far as my spirituality went up like 10 levels on that one. Now, that was the mushroom experience. Now, ayahuasca, I still wasn't sure. And they say you don't find ayahuasca, it finds you. Well, DMT is the drug in ayahuasca that works. Now, all of a sudden, I had the opportunity to do DMT. So I did DMT about 12 times in total. Wow. And even that changed my perspective. It leveled up from the mushrooms. Like, and not to get too in-depth, it's a long story, but I always had a lot of questions about my dad because he was a very complicated man. The DMT solved all those problems. He was dead, and I couldn't get the answers. The DMT solved those problems by answering the questions. Wow. And I'm like, you got to be, now I got to go to my mom, and I got to tell her, I know I was on drugs when I was younger, and these are different drugs. But this is more like a medicine, but I'm taking these psychedelics. When she was like, what? But it made sense to her. And even she helped me work through the questions that I had based on the questions that I got from the DMT. So it was like, now I'm like, okay, there's drugs that you party with, but there's a whole nother avenue to these drugs that work like medications that open up your mind. And I might also say that I haven't had any fluoride in my body for a couple of years now. None in the water. I only drink Fiji water, which is fluoride free. My toothpaste is fluoride free. Everything is fluoride free, which fluoride actually calcifies your pineal gland. Pineal gland. There's so many different ways people say it, but the pineal gland, it calcifies it. When you start to reduce that calcification, you start to think more clearly and start to become more spiritual and see things for what they really are. Even colors are brighter and stuff like that. So the psychedelics, in addition to cutting out stuff like fluoride, and I don't eat sweeteners very much, just what's in my supplements. I only drink water. I don't drink any kind of sodas or anything like that. No alcohol, no drugs. So you're in a headspace that's a lot different in clear thinking rather than the average person who smokes, drinks, eats garbage, doesn't get enough sleep. Like, you're in a good place physically through your health and spiritually and mentally and emotionally. Like, it all comes together, but you have to do specific things for each thing to get those things to work together like that.
Right. See, I hadn't heard that about fluoride. I'm gonna have to look into that now, but I didn't have that kind of experience with mushrooms, and I haven't done DMT yet. I definitely want to. So we'll see if it comes along at some point. But it was much more subtle for me with the mushrooms. But at one point, because the first time I did them was not that long after this bad breakup that I had. Well, it wasn't even that bad. It was just like we had been together for so long. She was the first girl that I ever thought that I was going to marry. Those kinds of things, and like it all came together at one moment, and I had these thoughts just start pouring through my brain, and I still have the note in my phone, and I was like, I have to get these thoughts out. And I wrote a long, like almost essay in my iPhone, like crying while I was typing it. And like after, as soon as I was done and as soon as I finished that last sentence, the weight just dropped. And I was like, this is exactly what was supposed to happen at the exact time and all this stuff. And
was that right when you came down from the mushrooms, or was it a different day, or was it?
It was that, actually, that was on edibles. I had a cupcake, and I was in bed. This is going to sound really bad. I really hope my mom's not listening at this point. I had an edible with a female friend who came into town, and she was actually in bed next to me. And I had the edible, was in bed and just in tears while I was having these thoughts go.
But have you ever taken it before? Did you ever use anything like that before?
Yeah. I had edibles before and stuff like that, but this one just smacked me in the mouth. Yeah, it was really strong. And like when we watched the movie, we laughed, we had a good time with it. But then when I laid down, that's when my brain just started to race. And it was just like a full, it's like my brain just got a download. It was just like, you have to take this information right fucking now. Right. And it was so weird because it's like I'm having this moment where like I'm trying not to cry while there's a girl laying next to me, having an issue with like trying to work through this thing with this other girl that I just left. And afterwards, it was just like a full just release of all these toxic emotions and realizing that from the get-go, it wasn't going to work with her and I because of X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? Where like I like dove into my relationship with my father and like all this stuff, and it all just came together. It's crazy. I can share it with you sometime, but
yeah, I'd love to read it. That stuff is like, so I believe that the THC, they are downloads,
right?
Like they're downloads that you get. Now, the problem with the THC is it short circuits your short-term memory.
Yes.
So if you get a download and you're like, I think of these things that are so profound. I'm like, good Lord, like I can't believe like that's so. I understand now, right? But 10 minutes later, it's gone. It's completely gone. Like, and I can't remember regardless of what it is.
Right.
So the problem is like I can be in the shower thinking, and as soon as I shut the shower off to get out, it's gone in 1 second. And it's like it's spending 1 to 2 years for that the short-term memory to become long-term memory. So you remember it later. Like it's in your head. That stuff's not going to go anywhere. Yep. But you can't recall it very clearly because of the short-term memory short circuit that happens with that. But THC itself, like it's a very powerful thing. I think that a lot of people use it, party-wise, like to get high and stuff like that. But you can, if you're doing edibles you can see the milligrams and stuff, and you're buying it from a dispensary, you can actually say, okay, 30 milligrams gives me this effect, 50 milligrams gives me this effect. You know what I mean? Like mushrooms, you do 2 grams, 5 grams, whatever. Like you can do these different, amounts of it to get the effect that you desired. As opposed to like some people, like when we had weed when we were younger, it was weed. We didn't know what it was. How many milligrams? I have no idea. First time I walked in the dispensary, like, how many milligrams you want? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what's in the back weed like this? Like I had no clue of what it was. Sure. But it's stuff like peyote, mushrooms, THC, these things that are in nature, I believe 100%. Even opium too, like opium that comes from the poppy plants. The synthetic version, the heroin stuff that I used before is a very strong party drug. Yeah. But I do believe that they used to do something called Chasing the Dragon where they smoked opium, and it was a similar type of feeling where it's an outer body kind of a psychedelic experience. So I think there's a lot of natural things out there that they're meant for us to have. Like they're meant for us to ingest. They're meant for us to level up to the next level. I do believe that we've been taught that the pharmacy, big pharma, and the drugs that we have are what's real, and all this other stuff is crap, and we should stay away from it. It's dangerous, whatever the case may be. But all that stuff that the pharmacy makes is a byproduct of what this stuff originally was. It's created from those things. So I always kind of go back to those original things. And the mushrooms and DMT, it's not a pleasant experience. Like you don't take it and you're like, I want to do it all day long every day. Right. You take it and when you're done, you feel drained. Like I fasted for 24 hours. I didn't even have water for 24 hours. And by the time I was done, I was drained. I was like, man, I got to just like take a nap or something. Like I don't even want to eat or anything. I was just like, your mind was racing, and I took my phone and we actually recorded the mushroom trip. Oh, wow. Like every 40 minutes or something like that, my wife would take the phone and record what was going on. And, I watched it, and I mean, I don't know what your trip was like, but I was just sitting there like, and even the shaman himself was tripping his balls off. He was like, he was like losing it. Right. And I'm like just sitting there, and then my wife goes, now I know why you were able to do heroin and stuff like that and get away with it. Yeah. Like completely composed, tripping balls. Like I was seeing shit all over the house. I mean, we had Voldemort that was on TV. That was crazy looking, right? Just happened to be on TV. My dog stripes, right? Everything was crazy. I'm just like, I'm going out of my mind, but I'm able to just, okay. And then we'd film. It's okay. I'm seeing this. I'm feeling this. Yeah. Shaman's like, he's making noises and stuff, like, humming and stuff. I'm just like, what the hell is he doing? You know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to do that? I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Where am I? Yeah.
No, see, when I did it, go ahead. When I did it, I was like, I was definitely like reacting like crazy. I would get off on these laughing sprees that would last like 5 minutes. It was aggressive. But before we keep going on this, one thing I know I've said this to you in the past, but it's the fact that you could have such an aggressive addiction to heroin and just stop is amazing. I don't know if you remember me telling you this or not, but I had an uncle on my mom's side who was a heroin addict. He started off at like 15 or 16 smoking weed, got in the wrong crowd with the wrong people, and it escalated into heroin. And even at a young age, I don't know how old I was, but I have a very vivid memory of walking into the back room of my grandparents' house for, I want to say Christmas, and seeing him and his wife at the time with needles and that kind of thing, and not knowing what it was at the time, and knowing that my uncle was like sick, but not really fully understanding what was going on. And then unfortunately, it culminated with him killing himself. He hung himself in his house. And it was one of those things where, like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but it's one of those things where drugs like that take someone who could be such an amazing light to this world and destroys them. He was a great person. He was always making people laugh. He was always very caring, and he was always picking on me and that kind of thing. But he just got destroyed because of this habit. He couldn't keep a job. He couldn't keep a house. He couldn't keep anything. And it finally he got to the point where he just decided he couldn't handle it anymore. And it speaks volumes to just even who you are as a person, that you could just say, I'm not going to be that person and I'm done with it. And just that thought there of like, who could my uncle have been? Sparked the with my son coming, I wanted to use his namesake as my son's middle name to to kind of have some way to continue that, so there could be just something good can come out of it and carry his name on, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely want to just commend you for that. I mean, that in and of itself is amazing and a crazy story.
I didn't just stop. I mean, nobody just stops
Yeah.
and nobody just starts. You know what I mean? Like your uncle, me, nobody when they're a kid goes, you know what I want to be when I grow up? A heroin addict. You know what I mean? It's not how it happens. It happens in phases. It definitely, there's gateways. For me, it was pills. It was, but I mean, we have to back up way. Like the reason
I know the whole story. I've heard all of it.
The reason why your uncle couldn't stop was there was an issue making him do it. There's something that happened to him emotionally, and usually it's when you're a kid. Most of the stuff that messes us up happens as kids. And I didn't understand that, but my thing was I understood that I was messed up and I needed to listen to people that were smarter than me on it, that knew how to get me right, you know? So, for me, it was when I was about 10 or 11. I can't remember the exact time. I remember like it was yesterday, but I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was actually sexually assaulted by an older family member, my great uncle. And it really messed with me mentally because I didn't understand what had happened. I had long hair at the time. Like I thought maybe because I looked like a girl, it was like all these weird things. And I told my parents, and back then it was something they didn't talk about. Like, okay, we'll take care of it. And they kind of pushed it under the carpet, which left me feeling like kind of pretty vulnerable as a kid, And then my cousin who passed away, and he was more like my big brother who died of a drunk driving accident. He was in the car with the kid who was drunk and he died. And that sent me down a point where, that was way later in life. And that's what really sent me down the heroin avenue. But just the thing with my uncle, that sent me down an avenue where I was drinking at 12 years old, 11 to 12 years old. I was drinking. I mean, I'm drinking heavily, like Jack Daniels beer. I was drinking heavily on the weekends at my friend's house, and then smoke weed by 12 years old. We're out there smoking weed. So that was going on by the time I was 12. And I was drinking, I wouldn't say regularly, but I would drink 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I was drinking, like on the weekends at the very least, like stuff like that. And then the pills, like my father had back surgeries. I mean, so many surgeries, shoulder surgeries, back surgery. My mom, there was all these Vicodins laying around the house, like big ass bottles of Vicodins, right? So I'd pop a couple, go drinking, and it was a way to kind of get let loose or whatever. And then when I started doing professional wrestling and I got injured, I told my bicep tendon, they were just giving you painkillers like, here, just take tons of painkillers, keep going. I was like, cool, I'm popping painkillers, like feeling good, I have no pain. And then Nubane entered my life. Once Nubane, which was a bodybuilding drug, it was a injectable morphine type thing. And they give it to pregnant women in labor. So I was like, well, if they give it to women in labor, it's having a baby. It's got to be okay for me. It's sterile. It made sense. Like I rationalized it to make sense because the people that I was getting it from were addicted themselves.
Right.
So now you go through that dries up. Oxycontin was a big thing. Boom, the oxys come in because now you're getting withdrawal symptoms off of the Nubane. So this is all within like 2 years' time. I've gone from just drinking to popping pills to shooting Nubane onto popping or sniffing and popping the Oxycontin to eventually injecting the Oxycontin to when you got Nubane, it didn't even work anymore because it wasn't strong enough. So now you're stuck on the Oxycontin and then the Oxy dries up. You have one place left to go, and that is heroin.
Heroin, yeah.
And that's where I went. And now the whole time I'm on heroin, I weigh 235 pounds. I'm competing. I'm working 2 jobs. People know I'm messed up, but they don't know like the extent of it, like how bad it is,
Yeah.
This all culminates to the point where me and my ex were writing fake checks, cashing them, like depositing them at the bank, getting $100 out of the ATM automatically. And I'm like, we're going to go to jail. Like, this is it. A lot of my friends are dead or in jail. Like, we're going down the same road. And that's when I was like, I got to get clean. Like, I have to get clean. I have no choice. Yeah. And when I walked into rehab, they just looked at me because they were like, are you here to visit somebody? And I'm like, no, I'm here to, because I was 230 pounds, ripped, clean, shaven, like I was not your typical heroin user at the time.
Right.
And I walked in there and I remember my counselor telling me, Peter Beihauer was his name, this older guy. He was a former priest, which we never got into why he left the priesthood, which I would love to know that story now, but he was probably 75, 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I said, statistically, you're probably not going to make it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, even if you get clean, you're going to relapse. Chance of you killing yourself with a relapse is probably good. Like, and here's where you're at. Now, I've gone through withdrawals so many times that I stood on the edge where your uncle was multiple times. I mean, we're probably like one breath or one blink away from me taking my life. Yep. Literally. I can't tell you how many times. And I got to the point where when I'm sitting there looking at Peter, I'm like, you know what? Challenge accepted. Just like my wife with the hair. Challenge accepted, right? Like, don't tell me I can't. I'm so stubborn. So I go into this thing. I got my methadone dose, never took another dose of any kind of opiate ever again. My girlfriend at the time, I wanted to dating a girl. She was in the program also. And it got to the point where I was like, I was on the methadone. I got on Suboxone. And I said, I don't want to be on a pill for the rest of my life. Like, I need to to be free. And I weaned myself off the Suboxone, got off the Suboxone, have never taken anything since. And I've had, my girlfriends, my wife, they've had surgeries and stuff like teeth, pulled or whatever, drilled, and they've got Vicodin. There's Vicodin in the house right now. It doesn't even bother me. Like, it doesn't affect me anymore. But I know where, you
know where that goes. That's
one pill, you're off and running. And the pain, like what your uncle knew and that you won't know, but I can convey it to you. The pain of withdrawals is so much to your bones that hurt that you cannot experience another. And I've torn muscles, broken things, been stabbed, been hit. Nothing compares to that pain from your insides on withdrawals. Yeah. Now, when you think about a month of going through that, most people are not going to make it. They're not going to make it through a month of that. No matter how many Advil you take, or it doesn't matter. You can't sleep. You're throwing up. You're shaking. You're hot. You're cold. Your bones hurt. Like, you cannot hurt any more than that. I can imagine from what people that I know, and I've actually had a family member that passed away of AIDS. It sounds like AIDS, end-stage AIDS and cancer, that withdrawals mimic. Like, that's the pain, right? So your idea is, I want to get clean and have my life back, but I got to go with that. When you do that, it takes your body like another 2 months to recover. And then mentally, you have PTSD from the pain and things that you said and you felt, and like the thoughts that went through your head, how dark the place that you go to is. Like, it is a hard place to get out of, but I don't know how I got out of it. I'll be honest with you. Like, people, I don't know. I got people that try to hire me to coach them to get through things mentally, to get off drugs. And I'm like, look, you don't have to hire me, but I'll tell you what I did, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it, because I don't even know how I did it. You know what I mean? To this day, I don't know how I did it.
To me, that just goes to show that there was a reason for you still being here. There's something, again, like, I was raised in the church, and I'm not going to say that I'm a religious person anymore. I hadn't been in church since I was 18, or like, honestly, I kind of checked out prior to that. But I would say, like you, I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. So I definitely think that there is something that influences us beyond our knowledge or beyond our capability of understanding. So to me, that says that there was something there that you at the time may not have, but you might not have been able to hear it speaking to you, but if it spoke to you now, you would hear it, right?
Right.
So it was just telling you, like, hey, don't, right? And whether or not my uncle had that, I don't know. I'm sure there was something in the back of his head going, don't do it. But the other just overpowered him so much that he gave into it,
Imagine, like, there's, I can put it like, and again, I can give you some perspective that you can somehow understand. You know what I mean? Because what I don't want people, and I don't want you to think, is that your uncle took the easy way out. That is not what happened. Okay. I do not look at suicide as a coward's way out like many people do, or maybe I used to. When you're standing on the ledge, I don't mean you're going to jump. I mean, you're standing on the ledge that you're going to do this.
Sure.
You have to literally believe that whatever happens, no matter what it is better than where you're at now.
Yeah.
And you're hurting so much that even if you burn in hell, it's going to hurt less than what you're going through right now.
Yeah.
Right? That's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you talk to somebody about that? You know what I mean? Like, so now your uncle's sitting there and he's going through all these different things. At the same time, think about trying to come up with a way to save your own life, but there's constant giant speakers of noise, just fuzz, like static, non-stop in your face, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just static to where your ears hurt, right? And weird noise of things clanging around and moving around, and that noise never goes away. They're not voices, but it's constant noise. It's like you battling with your emotions and fears and all of it. It's all happening at the same time, and that's where you're at. You know what I mean? Like, I can kind of compare it to where I've had a roommate that had Asperger's, and there was constantly, when he went outside, he was so overly stimulated by everything that he would just like cower down, right? Because of colors and noises and birds and horns beeping and stuff like that. When you're going through withdrawals, everything is like that. Like, everything hurts. Like, the wind hurts. You clearing your throat hurts your entire body. Like, on top of it, there's nonstop noise in your face. Even when it's quiet, there's noise. Now my mind is quiet all the time.
Yeah.
You know, if it starts to get a little bit noisy and I can kind of comprehend things, I try to piece it together to what's going on and understand it, rather than so many things coming on. You can't do that. And that's where addiction is. There's so many things coming at you because these underlying things are not being worked on fully, because you don't even know they're there. It takes your 10 years just to get it out of you. to what's really causing the issue. And most people can't get to the root of the issue before they get to the point where your uncle was at. I just happened to. You know what I mean? I want to say that I was lucky, and I just happened to be open, listening to everything that counselor said. At the same time, I truly wanted to get better, and I wanted to know the answers. So if he asked me a question, and no matter how embarrassing it was, I gave him the truth. I gave him the answer, because I knew that I'm going to have to dig to some places in myself I didn't want to go to find out the answer to this. And that's not a place that many people can go, you know, even when they're on drugs. Like the reason why they're on drugs is the scariest thing, that they feel like they're broken. They cannot fix it. You know what I mean? But you have to go through the physical pain and the emotional pain. And like, it's a perfect storm of everything that can hurt, harm, and beat you down all at the same time, you know?
For sure. I mean, I don't even I couldn't ever imagine to think I understand what somebody went through in that kind of circumstance. So, I mean, I think the way you explained that is probably the best way that you can to someone who's never experienced that. So,
you can comprehend it, but you can't feel it. But sometimes comprehending is enough. You know, you don't need to feel the pain to know. Everybody's felt massive amounts of pain in their life.
Right.
Say whatever you felt, let's just at least take that amount and multiply it times 4 years around the clock. You know, and then you can say, okay, you know.
And I don't need to feel your pain in order to empathize with you and know that what you went through at that time was something the majority of people would never understand, you know, or never had to deal with either. But we really got deep on that one. Started off with fitness and got into it, man. But, no, see that's why I wanted to have you on here, because I don't want to have people on who are just two-dimensional. You know, I don't want somebody who's just going to come on here and just talk about diet and training and that kind of thing. And so I really appreciate you coming on here, man. Is there anything that you want to say before we finish up?
Oh, man, it's good talking to you and catching up, man. It's been a long time. I keep up with you on Instagram and stuff like that. See that you're doing well.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
like, hey, I got a podcast going. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a podcast. Let's do it, man.
Hey, man, it really means a lot. And I said the same thing to Chris Tuttle when he said that he would come on. This is my ultimate vision, to be able to eventually not have to work from a location and be able to spend more time with my son. I've known for a long time that I wanted to build something big and that I wanted to do more than what I was already doing. My son has just now kind of sped that timeline up, you know? So it's really cool. And I'm really looking forward to just what this becomes and what comes of it. Even if nothing comes of it, something along the way with me taking the steps to better myself, something's going to come along that's going to spark that, you know? So I just really appreciate
something that can apply to something else.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't wind up doing what we want to do, right? I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be an artist, and I wound up being a bodybuilder. Right. But the things that I learned, like patience and different things, I actually don't have a lot of patience, but the things that I learned through those other things, I applied to bodybuilding. And then things that I applied from bodybuilding to other things in my life, like I stopped bodybuilding and applied. So you may learn something here that you apply to something else, and it takes that thing to the next level. And maybe that's not the ultimate thing. Maybe those two things you take and it applies. Like there's a constant, like a learning curve, and there's new stuff coming at you all the time.
Like we talked about when we first started kind of talking about the law of attraction stuff, I think it's a matter of just taking steps. Regardless of knowing the end goal, or regardless of knowing what's going to happen along the way, I think if you're taking the steps and putting that positive energy out there, something good's going to come of it. But I just appreciate you coming on here and taking an hour to shoot the shit with me, man. Do you want to plug your Instagram, YouTube, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not why I came on. It doesn't. That stuff like that doesn't bother me. I like getting on here, and hopefully some of the words that I've said, someone will catch. And it'll make them think, you know what I mean? I think that's my thing. Like from day one, when I started this stuff, I don't want people to think like me. I want people to think for themselves. I want them to take my words and then start thinking for themselves. And if it's something I say sparks that, I want them to go further, maybe even learn something about something that I don't know. Yeah. Based on what I said, you know, so hopefully, you know, all my stuff is BioS3 Training. It's BioS3Training.com, BioS3 Training, YouTube. Jerry, you can just type my name in, Jerry Ward. I'm pretty much the only Jerry Ward that pops up in Google now, which I think is actually pretty cool. But there's a lot of stuff I had out there. It's not all, you know, bodybuilding, because I think bodybuilding is one thing that we are, but it's not all that we are. Exactly. You know, and I think that we would, you know, we get along. Bodybuilding brings us together. We find out how much we all have in common just from bodybuilding. But I found throughout the years, like especially traveling on the road with a lot of people that, you know, we're doing the different expos and stuff, like you wind up finding things about those people that it's the same shit that you go through. And you wind up going, hey, we're not just bodybuilders. we're human beings too. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like we're human beings that go through the same shit. So
Right.
hopefully that's where this thing will go. People see it.
Yeah. For sure. And well, again, appreciate you coming on here. Y'all stay safe. I know it's kind of a crazy time right now. I know you said Virginia's been pretty chill, but you never know. Just be
A lot of
safe,
guns
man.
people here. You know, there's a lot of guns here. So
Oh
people,
yeah, yeah. I just bought one a few weeks ago. So
I don't have one, and I'm like, you know, we have the NRA right down the street. Like literally, it's right down the street from us, like 4 blocks away. It's sitting there.
yeah,
I'm like, we should get a rifle or something. I don't know. My wife's very against guns. She's always been against them, but
yeah,
now it's like maybe, you know.
yeah. I'll be getting my concealed carry here soon. I just before all the rioting stuff started, I was like, let me go ahead and get one of these just because the corona, like the shutdown, that could have started a riot. That could have started this violence and stuff. So it was like I would much rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I mean, there's a gruesome video that was going around on Instagram of a man being beat to death for defending his business in Dallas, and it was it was literally right outside the condo complex of the owner of my bar that I work for.
Wow.
And it's just like it's so crazy that at any moment that could be me. And the way I look is I refuse to be that without going down with a fight. You know what I'm saying? So, we won't get off on that. We'll end up on here for
another hour.
Yeah, right. All right, brother. I'll let you go, man. You have a good rest of your day.
It's good talking to you, buddy. Take care.
Yes, sir. Bye.